everybody, today we're going to talk about Superman Space Age. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we're talking about Superman Space Age by Mark Russell and the pretty much phenomenal Mike Allred. So, this is a Black Label book? No, it's not. It's not a Black Label book. I feel like it should be. It's kind of presented like one in the way that this is a hardcover straight out of DC. There's only 3 issues, so they were all like double-sized and that kind of thing. Just the story isn't like edgy or adult, really. It's just a classic Superman story. So maybe that's why it does not have the Black Label moniker. This is the inside. I think I did a overview of this, but this is kind of like a DC version of Spider-Man Life Story, I would think. A little bit. It's a lot shorter, and it's like Spider-Man Life Story in that it takes in main elements of DC's past and Superman's story and weaves them together to form a new tale that's kind of allegorical, right? You have the first issue kind of following the beginning of Superman's time period where he's, getting involved. He's becoming a reporter. He's finding things out. He gets a costume. He's talking to his dad about why he should help people. The second one is him truly being Superman. Lex Luthor's blowing stuff up, getting thrown in jail. We're encountering Lois Lane. In an interview for the first time, we're encountering Batman of this world. And the other superheroes, they start to talk about forming a Justice League. They're fighting Brainiac, that kind of thing. And then the final one sees, Superman's parents die, him getting older, having a child with Lois Lane, and ultimately Batman and the Joker going at it for some reason in a Superman book. And the final confrontation with an Anti-Monitor, and then also Superman's solve for humanity when they ultimately end up losing, and how he saves everybody at the end of the book. So kind of like All-Star Superman meets Spider-Man Life Story. Like All-Star Superman, that it's Superman from beginning to end in terms of this guy, and Spider-Man Life Story in the terms of like, here are elements that you know, that you love, that you're familiar with, and we're going to retool them in a different way to kind of tell our story. So that's my best allegory or metaphor for it. So is it good? I would say the art's very good. I like Mike Allred. He's gotten a lot better. I was looking at some of his stuff from Ecstatics online the other day. And I was like, man, I can understand why people don't like Mike Allred, because his stuff back then, in the early 2000s, was a lot less detailed than it is here. Now, this is Mike Allred doing, his best work I've ever seen. Super detailed. His colorist, Laura Allred, I believe it's his wife, is doing a phenomenal job. I like their stuff that they did on Fables. I really like them on that book. Everybody does look a little bit different, and that's nice. Some of the guys do look a little same, but he certainly knows how to do emotion and age, different kinds of features, and that kind of thing. I think what puts people off is that it's very kind of retro, his style. The same way like Jamie McKelvey, there's not a lot of shading, there's not a lot of cross-hatching or shadows or anything. It's just like, here's the outline, right? And you leave it up to the colors to do the rest of the work, which to me makes sense. I mean, it's 4-color superheroes after all, and it works pretty well for this book, honestly. So I'm a fan of his artwork. I really dig it. Even Batman's always in a solid gray suit. There's never any shadow. So I think that's maybe people's main dig against him, is that, there's no shadows. He doesn't render everything. Well, he lets the colorist, add a lot to it. And his wife, Laura Allred, certainly does. You got Wonder Woman in here fighting Brainiac and the Invisible Jet. Like, this is very 60s Super Friends-ish, I would say. But is it a great story along the lines of All-Star Superman and Spider-Man Life Story? Like, those are all-time greats. Spider-Man Life Story being the newest one that I've read, that I'm like, this is a new evergreen. This is an all-time great. All-Star Superman's been around since, 2005, and finished in, 2007 or something like that. So that's kind of older. No, it's just fine. Like, it's okay. And I think the added epic scope of everything that you know, Mark Russell's trying to do here kind of takes away from it. Or maybe it's because Mike Allred's stuff is so retro that it takes away from like the gravitas he's trying to, Mark Russell's trying to put on this story. But at the same time, there's a lot of whimsy in this story that Mike Allred does very well. But that whimsy in the story also takes away from the gravitas, the end of life situation. So maybe it's just me. Other people might find it great. If you love retro Superman, if you love 60s, 70s, who was it? Was it not Gil Kane? That's a Spider-Man artist. But the guy that did Whatever Happened to the Man Tomorrow, his name's escaping me. But if you like that pre-Crisis Superman, you're probably going to love this book. Even though it takes a lot in from Crisis on Infinite Earths with the Anti-Monitor and all that. Here's a shot of him. Mike Allred's style is pretty funny. Harbinger's there. Brainiac is kind of like... he is Brainiac, but he's not Brainiac in the same way. That was kind of interesting. Again, new takes on all this stuff to kind of like mash it all together. And I think that's the most interesting thing about it. But is it a great story? Is it one that I'm going to be like, you need to read this Superman book in your top 3? No, I think this is more of like not a hidden gem because I didn't love it. I didn't like, I wasn't like, oh wow. Like honestly, I read issues 1 and 2 and then put it down for like a week before I picked up the last third of this book. So I think that says something about how good it is. You know what I mean? Like a really good book I will put down when I'm done reading for the day or whatever and go back to it the next day. This one, I believe I started the Sandman book 1 before I finished this one, or I was reading other stuff on my iPad, that kind of thing. So it wasn't calling to me to get finished. You know what I mean? So that was kind of a bummer. I do think they are going to do a Batman Space Age here. That takes place in the same time because there's stuff that happens with Batman here that honestly I think was the most interesting part of the book. But I don't know if I'll pick that one up. We'll see. If Mike Allred's on board, I'll probably pick it up just to kind of be like a together with this. But honestly, there's so much Batman in this Superman book that I don't know that they need to do it. It's not overly Batman. Like it's still a Superman story, but they spend a lot of time with Bruce Wayne and making him different than regular Bruce Wayne and more aligned with like what feelings were in the 70s and 60s and that kind of thing about wealth and what he should do with it, instead of just focusing solely on Superman. Like, I guess if you're going to expand that out, that would make it more interesting. But he does have like a final showdown with the Joker here that is really satisfying. That I don't know if you could put that in a Batman Space Age spinoff and still call it like as good. I don't know where you start that book and leave off because the Batman tale in here is really, it's front to back just like Superman's. And I think that's the most interesting thing about this book is that you get a pretty good Batman story in an okay Superman story. But then again, I feel like there's a lot of Superman stories like that. Like, you can call back to a lot of Batman evergreens, but does Superman have a bunch? I don't think so. He's got For Tomorrow, or no, not For Tomorrow. Sorry, not that one. Superman for All Seasons, and he's got All-Star Superman and maybe the Man of Steel miniseries from the beginning, and that's kind of it. There's not a lot of awesome, great Superman stories that you can roll down like I can Batman ones. So, this might make the list someday. I'll reread it at some point and let you know if we do a ranking of, Brent Superman books that he has on his shelf. But, in the end, it's okay. So if you really like Mike Allred, I guess I would say go check this book out. It's his best work I've ever seen. If you really like Mark Russell, I guess check it out. But if you're just a Superman fan or a casual Superman fan, this gets a light recommendation. Like, it's okay. Maybe wait for the trade paperback instead of springing for the $30 hardcover like I did. So that's my review, my thoughts on Superman Space Age. If you absolutely love this, let me know down below. I want to know why, and why do you think that I didn't love it as much as you did. And we'll see you down in the funny pages.